Fear has been misunderstood for too long. People have treated fear like a stop sign, as if the presence of fear is a reason to freeze, back down, or retreat. But the truth is, fear isn't the problem. Avoiding fear is. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your fuel if you learn how to use it. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in your life, every moment where you stretched beyond who you were yesterday, came with fear riding shotgun. It was there before your first big decision. It was there when you stepped into a relationship. It was there when you stood on the edge of risk, quitting the job, launching the business, saying yes to something that could change everything. Fear always shows up before something real happens. The mistake is thinking that fear means stop. That's the conditioning. From an early age, we're told to be careful, stay safe, don't rock the boat. We're taught that fear is a signal to avoid, but it's not. Fear is a signal to pay attention. It's the brain doing its job, alerting you that what you're about to do carries weight. It matters. It could redefine who you are. And that's why you feel it. That pulse in your chest, that catch in your breath. It's not weakness, it's aliveness. It's the surge of potential energy waiting to become kinetic, waiting to become power. What you have to decide is what fear means to you. Because meaning is everything. Some people feel fear and assign it the meaning, I'm in danger. Others feel that same fear and say, this is the edge. This is where I grow. Same feeling, completely different results. The difference isn't the fear, it's the interpretation. When you treat fear as fuel, you begin to act differently. You stop pulling back and start leaning in. Instead of shrinking, you expand. You use the physiological energy of fear, adrenaline, heightened focus, intensity, and you channel it. You don't need to eliminate fear to act. You need to decide that fear is not the boss. Because here's the truth, courage doesn't exist without fear. No one is brave in the absence of fear. Bravery is action in the presence of it. You build strength not by avoiding fear, but by standing in it, breathing through it, and moving forward anyway. People wait for the fear to go away before they make the move. That's a losing game. If you're waiting for fear to disappear before you start the business, have the conversation, write the book, launch the idea, you'll be waiting forever. Fear doesn't go away. It evolves. It shifts shape. The goal isn't to get rid of fear. The goal is to outgrow the version of you that's ruled by it. When you break through fear once, it changes you. It reprograms your nervous system. Suddenly, what once felt impossible is your new normal. And now you operate at a different level. You've proven to yourself that fear didn't kill you. It created you. It shaped the version of you that is capable of more. And now, when fear shows up again, you don't interpret it as danger. You interpret it as a compass. It points to where your next level is hiding. So imagine for a moment that you didn't run from fear. Imagine that you stood in it unshaken and turned it into fuel. How would that change the way you speak, the way you lead, the way you show up in your relationships, your work, your life? How much more power could you access if fear was no longer a brake pedal but a launch pad? The most successful people on the planet feel fear just like you. The difference is they've trained themselves to associate fear with action. Fear means move. Fear means go. Fear means I'm alive and on the edge of something important. When you shift this mindset, everything opens up. Suddenly, you stop playing defense and start playing offense. You stop living in reaction and start living in creation. Fear becomes your ally, not because it disappears, but because it drives you. Because now, every time it shows up, you don't question yourself. You know this is the edge of growth. This is where power begins. Would you like me to keynote in the same tone and depth? You can have all the tools, all the knowledge, all the strategy in the world and still find yourself stuck. Why? Because the mind will not follow a story it doesn't feel. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how good your intentions are. If your emotional state is off, your decisions will be weak, your momentum will die, and you'll question everything you know. That's why state is everything. Your state, your physical, emotional, and mental condition in any given moment drives every action you take. It determines how you respond, how you think, how you lead, and whether or not you follow through. The most powerful people in the world aren't always the smartest, but they've mastered their state. They know how to shift it. They know how to generate energy on demand. Because if you control the state, you control the outcome. Most people don't realize that they're living in a reactive state. They wake up tired, check their phone, get hit with stress before they've even taken a breath, and then spend the rest of the day trying to catch up. They think they're making choices, but they're not. They're just reacting to their environment, reacting to the external world instead of generating power from the inside. That's not how you break through. That's not how you thrive. The truth is, you can shift your state in a heartbeat. Your state is not something that happens to you. It's something you create. And you create it through three main forces: your physiology, your focus, and your language. Start with the body. Your physiology is the foundation of your state. If you're slouched over, breathing shallow, looking down, your nervous system is signaling shutdown. You're literally telling your body that you are not in control. But when you stand tall, breathe deep, move with energy, expand your chest, and take up space, everything changes. Your posture affects your psychology. You don't wait to feel powerful. You move like you are, and the feeling follows, because motion creates emotion. You change the way you move, and you change the way you feel. It's that fast. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for confidence. You create it. Then there's focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. If you're focused on what's missing, what's wrong, what could go wrong, you're going to feel powerless, no matter how much potential you have. But if you direct your focus toward what's possible, what you can control, and what you're committed to creating, your energy rises. You start operating from a place of clarity and strength. Focus is a muscle, and like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. Most people allow their focus to be hijacked by distractions and doubt, but you can train it, you can condition it. And when you do, you begin to own your state instead of surrendering it. And then language. The words you use to describe your experience become your experience. If you say, I'm overwhelmed, your brain believes you. But if you say, I'm challenged and I'm rising to meet it, your brain believes that too. The language you use internally, your self-talk, and externally, how you speak to others, has the power to lift you or limit you. Most people don't speak with intention. They default to the vocabulary of stress, of limits, of fear. But once you start choosing words that elevate your energy, you elevate your state every time. People talk about mindset like it's the whole game. But mindset without the right state is powerless. It's like trying to win a race with the best car and no fuel. You need to put yourself in a peak state first, then engage your mind, because when your state is strong, your beliefs get stronger. When your state is low, even your best beliefs seem distant and untrue. This is why so many people know what to do, but don't do what they know, because knowing is not enough. The key is to feel, to connect, to be in the state that drives action. When you're in the right state, you don't need to try harder, you just do. When you're in the right state, fear loses its grip, doubt quiets down, and your decisions get sharper. You become unstoppable, not because the fear is gone, but because you've chosen a state that makes fear irrelevant. Every person walks through life carrying a story. Some are aware of it, most are not. But whether it's conscious or not, that story is the filter through which you experience the world. It's the script that determines your actions, your self-worth, your limits, and your possibilities. Your story is not just something you tell, it's something you live. And until you take control of it, you're not really living your life. You're living the narrative you've accepted, inherited, or created in moments of pain, fear, or uncertainty. The story is the silent architect of your identity. It's built piece by piece from past experiences, comments people made about you, childhood moments, failures you internalized, and successes you discounted. It becomes the background music of your decisions. It tells you what you can do, what you can't do, who you are, and who you're not. And the dangerous part, most people never question it. They mistake the story for the truth. You hear it in people's language every day. I've always been like this. I'm not a leader. I'm just not good with money. Relationships never work out for me. These aren't facts. They're beliefs wrapped in emotion, rehearsed over time and repeated so often they feel like reality. But they're not. They're stories. And the moment you recognize that, you open the door to transformation. Because if a story got you stuck, a new story can set you free. You see, you are not your past. You are not the trauma you went through. You are not the mistakes you made when you didn't know better. Those may be chapters in your book, but they are not the whole book. The problem is, when you leave the story unchecked, those chapters start to define the entire plot. You start narrating your life through the lens of what went wrong, what you lost, or what you feared. And then you wonder why you keep repeating patterns, why change feels impossible, and why success always seems just out of reach. But the moment you shift the narrative, the game changes. When you choose to redefine what your past meant, everything transforms. A failure doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you had the courage to try, and now you're armed with insight. A broken relationship doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you've learned what you will no longer settle for. That painful childhood, it can become the furnace that forged your strength, your empathy, your purpose. It all comes down to the story you decide to tell. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything's perfect. It's about telling the truth in a more powerful way. Because there are always multiple interpretations of any moment. You get to decide which one empowers you. You get to decide whether you use your past as a weight or as wings. Most people carry their history like a burden, but it can become your foundation if you rewrite the meaning. And rewriting doesn't mean erasing. It means owning it. It means standing in front of the mirror and saying, yes, this happened, and here's what I'm choosing to make it mean. That's power. That's authorship. That's the moment you stop living a recycled life and start living an intentional one. The mind is always writing a script. The question is, who's holding the pen? Is it your pain, your doubt, your fear? Or is it your vision, your strength, your decision to become something more? Your future is not limited by your past. It's limited by your attachment to the old story. The story that told you to stay small, to play safe, to wait until you're ready. But no story is permanent unless you keep reading it. You can turn the page. You can write a new chapter. Not someday, not when you figure it all out, but now, right now, because your identity is not fixed. It's fluid, and it follows the story you believe most deeply. When you start living with awareness of your story, you begin to hear it in real time. That voice that says you can't, you catch it, you question it, you interrupt it. And over time, you replace it with a story that aligns with who you want to become, not who you used to be. Because you are not here to relive the past. You are here to create a life that reflects your highest truth. And that life begins with the story you choose to tell yourself over and over until it becomes your new reality. There is a moment, every breakthrough, where everything shifts. It's not when the conditions are perfect. It's not when the fear disappears. It's not when someone gives you permission. It's the moment you make a real decision. Not a wish, not a preference. A decision, the kind that draws a line in the sand and says, this is who I am now. That's the moment destiny changes. People love to talk about dreams. They love to talk about potential. They love to talk about what they want. But dreams without decisions are just fantasies. Potential without action is wasted power. The people who build lives of purpose, of freedom, of fulfillment, they didn't get there by chance. They got there because they decided. They decided what they would no longer tolerate. They decided who they would become, and they followed through when it was hard, when it was inconvenient, when it would have been easier to quit. A decision is not just a thought. It's a commitment backed by action. It's when your words and your standards align with your behavior. Most people think they've made decisions when all they've done is made suggestions to themselves, saying, I should lose weight. I need to fix my finances. I want to grow my business is not a decision. It's a desire. Real decisions are followed by immediate action. A real decision doesn't leave room for negotiation. Every day you're making decisions whether you realize it or not. You decide what time to wake up. You decide how to speak to yourself in the mirror. You decide whether you're going to feed your doubts or feed your vision. You decide what standards you hold yourself to, and those standards shape your results. Not your resources, not your circumstances, not your background, your decisions. Some people say, I'd succeed if I had more money. But there are people with no money who became millionaires because they decided they would not stay broke. Others say, I would do it if I had more time. Yet there are people with children, full-time jobs, and massive responsibilities who make time because they decided their dream was non-negotiable. The difference is not the environment, it's the internal decision. When you make a decision from your core, the world begins to bend around it. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop chasing hacks. You start building from a place of absolute clarity. That doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's aligned. When you decide with full ownership, your brain stops asking if and starts asking how. It goes to work on the solution. That's the power of a real decision. It rewires your focus, your energy, and your habits. The reason most people avoid decisions is because decisions carry weight. The moment you decide, you eliminate other options. That scares people. So instead, they linger in indecision, telling themselves they're being careful or waiting for the right time. But what they're really doing is protecting themselves from commitment. The truth is, indecision is the most exhausting place to live. It drains energy, erodes confidence, and paralyzes momentum. A clear decision brings relief. It brings power. It brings movement. The quality of your life is the quality of your decisions. If you're not happy with where you are, trace it back to the choices you've made, and then make a new one. At any moment, you can decide to raise your standards, cut off toxic patterns, invest in your growth, step up in your relationships, take control of your health. You don't need a new year. You need a new level of resolve. There's a moment when someone says, that's it, I'm done settling. That's the spark. That's the second their destiny begins to evolve. Because what shapes your future isn't your past, it's what you decide now. And you can decide from a place of fear or a place of power. You can decide to react to life or to lead it. Every transformation starts with a decision to stop living in reaction and start living by intention. No one else can decide for you. Not your parents, not your partner, not society. The decision is yours. And with that decision comes responsibility, the responsibility to act, to follow through, to keep deciding every single day to align your actions with your highest vision. That's how destiny is written, not in one dramatic moment, but in the series of decisions that add up to a life fully lived. Every result in your life, your finances, your health, your relationships, your confidence, can be traced back to one thing: your standards. Not your goals, not your dreams, not your intentions, your standards. Because while dreams inspire you, standards define you. You don't get what you want. You get what you're willing to tolerate. What you allow is what will continue. What you expect is what will shape your reality. Most people don't rise to the level of their potential. They fall to the level of their standards. If your standard is to get by, you'll survive, but you'll never thrive. If your standard is to give minimal effort and hope for maximum results, you'll live in frustration. But when you raise the bar on what you demand from yourself, your life has no choice but to rise with you. Your standards are like an invisible thermostat for your entire existence. You set the temperature, and everything around you adjusts to meet it. There are people with less talent, less time, fewer resources, and more challenges who are living at levels 10 times higher than others, not because they're lucky, but because they've made a decision about what they will no longer accept. They've raised their standards beyond average. They've chosen excellence as a baseline, not a bonus. And they act in alignment with that standard every day. Because when something becomes a must, you find a way. When it's just a should, you find an excuse. Look around at any area of your life where you feel frustrated or stuck. The truth is, it's likely not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of higher standards. If your body is suffering, it's because you've accepted less than vibrant health. If your relationships are filled with tension, it's because you've tolerated weak communication, low intimacy, or unresolved resentment. If your finances are unstable, it's because your standard around financial mastery has been low. It's not personal, it's just a mirror. Your life is reflecting the standards you've lived by. But the beautiful part is this: you can raise them right now. You don't need anyone's permission to decide that from this moment forward. You will no longer operate at the level of comfort, of compromise, of just getting through. You can choose to hold yourself to a higher code, not because you have to, but because you're called to. Because you know there's more inside you that hasn't been accessed yet. And that version of you isn't going to rise because you wish for it. It's going to rise because you demand it. Raising your standards is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about deciding what you are absolutely committed to becoming and then aligning your habits, your language, your time, and your energy with that commitment. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with more intention. And it begins with a declaration: I will no longer settle. I will no longer play small. I will no longer outsource my worth to people who don't see my value. From this moment on, I lead from a higher place. The people who change the world, The ones who make impact and move mountains are not those who followed the crowd. They are the ones who raised their standards when no one else was watching. They decided that their identity was worth more than fitting in. They raised the bar on how they treat others, how they show up under pressure, how they care for their mind, their spirit, and their contribution. And once you raise your standards, the universe begins to test you. It asks, are you serious? And you prove it, not once, but every single day. Every time you say yes to something beneath your standard, you reinforce the old identity. Every time you say no to what no longer aligns, you strengthen the new one. This is how transformation happens. Not in one leap, but in the daily moment-to-moment commitment to live in alignment with the person you've decided to become. It's not about waiting until you feel ready. It's about deciding you're done waiting. Your standards are not about what you expect from others. They're about what you demand from yourself. When you expect more of yourself, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You attract different energy. You inspire different people. And your environment either rises with you or reveals who is not ready to grow. You were not born to shrink in the face of fear. You were born to rise, to create, to lead. Every breakthrough begins not in the world outside, but in the world within. When you learn to use fear as fuel, when you take command of your emotional and physical state, when you rewrite the story that has held you back, when you decide with absolute certainty who you will become, and when you raise your standards to match the life you're truly meant to live, you become unstoppable. This is not a theory. This is a decision, a shift, a standard. It's the moment you stop waiting for the world to change and instead become the change. Fear will still knock. Doubt will still whisper. Life will still challenge you. But once you've awakened to your own power, real, unshakable personal power, you will never go back to sleep. Because now you know the power has always been yours. Break through. Thrive. And never lower your standard again. Would you like this entire script compiled into a formatted document or presentation-ready version?